Hello, hello. It is another lovely Tuesday evening with the People's Pride Project, and you know what that means. That means I'm on the couch with another lovely couch conversation. And today we have Miss Shaun Joy, owner of Clear Sky Ahead Emergency Prep. Now, y'all know what 3P is about, so you know this is right in line. I'm excited for this one. I really, really am. Because we want the people to be ready. I want to give the people the information, and I'm very positive that you have it. So thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
So we can start at the beginning. What got you into the desire to be more prepared? I guess that's the word to start.
So, when Hurricane Harvey hit, I
Hmm.
was sitting at home, and I mean, you just saw all this devastation on the television happening, right? You see people floating down regular looking streets and houses covered in water. And it was just really, really hurting my heart. Like, oh my God, I can't believe all this suffering is going on. And I saw something that came across a Facebook page like, oh, you can make it was some ridiculous amount, like $8,000 a week, and help people during the hurricane. It had this phone number. So I
Hmm.
called the phone number, and of course, the phone number did not work. Right. So that didn't work, but I was like, well, this information has to exist somewhere. So I actually did my own digging and actually found a company that actually you could work as a FEMA contractor, and you can help people who were having issues during Hurricane Harvey and then later Hurricane Irma. So I drove in my car. I live in California, in Los Angeles, and I drove from California to Texas, me and another friend, to go and help people with the recovery efforts. And then when I got down there, just what I saw, actually is what made me realize that not only do I need to get prepared, but I need to help other people around me get prepared. And what I basically saw is people 3 weeks out, believing that, the government was coming,
Hmm.
thinking like, it's an emergency. We are a first world country. Someone's going to save us. And I just found out that no one's coming to save
Nobody's going to save you.
and definitely not in a time frame that you need it to happen.
Mhm.
So I'm 3 weeks post disaster, 4 weeks post disaster, and I'm going into people's homes who still don't have electricity, the 3 4 weeks. And this is what every crew in the country that can possibly do the work down there trying to get the power lines and stuff back up, like 3 weeks 4 weeks out. You have people who are still having to stand in line every single day for food that they don't really want to eat. You have people whose homes have been absolutely destroyed, and they're waiting on me to basically give them some kind of government assistance, and by the time that I get there, you still have probably another 3 weeks or a month before you're going to get any funds. And even when you get them, FEMA, people have this misconception that FEMA makes you whole. FEMA is a basic needs program. So FEMA's like, do you have two pairs of clothes? Do you have a table, basic table? So that kind of just really got me interested in prepping. And I came home realizing, like, okay, I live in an earthquake country. When it's not a if, it's when. When will an earthquake happen? And am I prepared, or am I going to end up in the same lines and hoping for some help from the government that's not coming? So that's kind of how it started for me.
I can imagine that being eye-opening and kind of scary,
Yeah.
especially, in our communities. Granted, people everywhere are unprepared. They're, hustle and bustle every day, but
Yeah.
especially us, whether it's through financial means or all the other things that are happening, we tend to live in the moment, and
Absolutely.
we're just trying to get to the next payday or to the next paycheck. And
Yeah.
then when the money comes in, it's how do I shuffle it? So it doesn't even think, well, let me go for the future,
Right. And
make
it's
sure.
something as simple as, like, let's say you're not a homeowner, right? Something as simple as having renter's insurance, which can be as cheap as $15 a month, right? That's the difference between you waiting on the government for a month and a half and you having a check in 3 days, and you're able to go find something new and replace your belongings at cost, at their value. So I've been trying to talk to people about this and my family members about this, but prepping is something that people get turned off too. And I think part of the reason why it's a turnoff, and another reason why I actually started my company, is that once I started getting into this, right, saying, okay, wait, I got to get prepared. And I'm looking at these Facebook groups and I'm trying to find these resources. And you find one or of two things. You find these extremely racist communities, where, because prepping can be, prepping can go hand in hand with, the whole other movements,
The backward sort of mindset.
Absolutely. Survival off of the land, the race war is coming, so if you're in the wrong prepping community, you're trying to weed through and dig through all of that. Right. And then they do have some Black prepper groups too, but then you have to deal with a lot of the like misogynistic stuff that's going on inside of those. Like they can just both be very toxic and extreme, because one of the like jokes I used to have, like, okay, look, I started my company because I don't want to fight zombies. But if an earthquake hits, I also don't want to,
Right.
be homeless and have to start over. Like, where's that in between? And I wanted to be a sane prepper, like how do you survive disasters that happen? Coronavirus is an example. What just recently happened in Texas is an example. What happened with Hurricane Harvey and Irma and Michael. I've gone down with all of the hurricanes, except for the last like maybe year now. But those, they happen, and you can't prep in the moment. And I think that that's the biggest mistake our community makes, is that they think they can be reactionary. We had a big earthquake here in 1995. I want to say it was the Northridge earthquake, 94, 95. I can't remember the exact date. It took 5 minutes for your local fire station and local stores to be out of goods, right? So you have to respond. You have to have access to get there that fast and respond in time. You cannot prep in the middle of a disaster. You have to be prepared beforehand. And the second, and I don't, stop me if you want to ask me another question, but another reason why I decided to start my company is that when I started looking for materials to prep with, like I'm going out and I'm like, okay, well, let me get an emergency kit, right? And I looked up emergency kits and I say, huh?
I said they're so
expensive, but they're actually not any good. And most of them are actually inadequate for what you need them for. So I'm looking and say, okay, this is an earthquake kit. I'm going to buy it. It says earthquake kit right there, right? So this is going to help me get through an earthquake. So I buy the earthquake kit and I open it and I see Band-Aids. Okay, so an earthquake hits and I'm going to literally put a Band-Aid on, like Band-Aid, some gauze, maybe some little wipes, really for like a paper cut. They're made for like small cuts. They're not made for I got injured in an earthquake, and then, okay, I'm opening the food. They have this big block, right? And it says 27, maybe it was 2,800 calorie food source, right? So I'm all like, what is this? And I open it and I'm like, this is like this big, like cookie looking thing that smell like cinnamon and tastes like chalk, right? And, and really that's it. You might have a flashlight in there and you might have some scissors and, you're just like, I'm like, okay, so I just came down from, the hurricane, and this stuff is not going to help in the conditions in which I saw these homes. And I was an inspector. So I had to go into people's homes and inspect their homes to determine how much damage had been done to their homes, to see if they were going to get either some money if they were a homeowner or get some help to move if they were a renter, right? So I'm like, this does not help, right? This is not going to help. And time again, every kit that I had really just, that's what it was, right? So one of the things I want to, and just to tell people like, okay, look, if you're doing this on your own at home and you're getting a first aid kit, look at what's in your first aid kit and think about what could potentially happen in your worst case disasters, right? So whatever that is in your area. For me, it's earthquakes, right? What could happen in an earthquake? Well, the roof could cave, like something could fall on me. What am I going to need in that situation? Like, minimally, I need a hard hat, and if I'm actually injured, I need a trauma kit. I need something that stops the bleeding,
Right.
something that can stabilize me until they can get me to a hospital. Because remember, paramedics they're not coming. If you can even get through to 911, you might not
Yeah.
even be able to get through. So, yeah.
I feel you on having two different trains of thought. And believe me, I've seen the emergency kits, like that Mylar blanket. Really not
Yeah,
gonna do nothing. Yeah, I'm wrapped in saran wrap and I'm starving.
pretty much.
So, so I'm sorry, I just lost my train of thought. As far as being prepared for specific situations, I feel like people do get either overzealous and they're like, I have to have everything. But
Yeah.
even in trying to get everything, they don't have the right things. Like I
Yeah.
saw that a lot with COVID. People are grabbing all this stuff, and I'm like, that's not even what you need. So how
Right.
you go about really figuring out what it is that you actually need, and not just having like a bunch of random odds and ends around.
I would say you need to think in terms of there's a few things you definitely need to have, right? You need to be able to stay warm. If you're in an area where it's cold, you need to figure out what keeps me warm because you can die quickly. The weather will kill you faster than almost anything else.
True.
So how am I going to stay warm? That could be from hand warmers. It can be things that are electric. How am I going to stay warm if my electricity doesn't work, if my heater's not working, if the things that I generally depend on for warmth are removed, you know, and to start thinking through that. Yes, it may be a blanket, right? But a blanket really isn't, going to help you. You need things that are electric. You need things that create their own heat source. They have like these hand warmers and stuff that you can use that they
Mhm.
sell that you get them a lot. Like if you ever gone skiing or like, in the
We used
snow,
to use them for marching band. Yeah,
huh?
I said we used to use them for marching band outside
Okay. So
seasons.
you know what I'm talking about,
Mhm.
right? So, you have to start thinking through that, right? A generator, they're expensive. So a lot of people don't go to that length, but
Mhm.
I would say save up. That should be one of the ultimate things that you want so that you don't, so, okay. Um, Warmth. The second thing you want to do after keeping yourself warm is you want to think about injuries and like I was talking about some kind of, if I'm injured, how do I stabilize myself enough to get to a hospital, right?
Mm.
And so that's not band-aids, that's a high pressure bandage wrap, right? Those are going to be a
Mhm.
little more expensive than what an ACE bandage, might cost. It's like high. It's they make now, there are these the gauze that actually stops bleeding. It makes your blood, I'm
Mhm.
losing the word right now, but
Coagulate and
yes, it makes your blood coagulate. So they have these gauze that actually helps do that, right? So you
Mhm.
want to start thinking of that kind of stuff. They sell head stabilizers. If somebody is injured and you don't really want to move them, to be able to stabilize their head. So you start thinking, if you're on you start fire extinguisher, you know, things of that nature, something to turn off I'm sorry. So that was trauma. So now go into safety, home security. You want your
Mhm.
fire extinguisher. You want something to be able to put out a fire. You want your gas turn off tools.
Mm.
Your tools to be able to turn off your gas, your tools to be able to turn off your water, anything of that nature. So you want to start, your lighting source. So you're not sitting in the house dark. That's not necessarily a candle, right? So even though candles give off some heat, they're temporary. You might
Mhm.
need light for 3 weeks, and so you want to really think through the longevity of how long you might be in this situation. Water is always important, right? Water you can carry if you have to leave your house.
That
So,
part.
so let's actually put food and water together, right? Because you have to eat and you have to drink. You'll die from not having either, right? So
Mm.
you want to make sure that the problem when people think about food and water, they go, "Oh, I have canned goods," and I have, my sparklets water that's delivered every week. So what happens if you have to leave? How many canned goods can you actually carry on your back? Because canned goods are heavy. So you want to start thinking through like something, and they sell these, but you can also just, do your own tuna in, packets and crackers and stuff, or you can buy from one of the many companies that are out there that actually do this, and then how do you cook that food if you're buying something that you actually need to warm up? They have little tiny stoves and stuff like that. So, heat protection, food, water, something to actually protect your house, or to get your house stabilized. And then you also put trauma, something for your trauma, in case you're injured, and then something if you have to go, right? Say
Mm-hmm.
your house is no longer your house. You have to. They call it bug in and bug out. You have
Right.
to bug out. Your house isn't, stable anymore. How do you have something you can put in a car that has all of the same things that you can actually just kind of go with, right? And like
Right.
say my Go Kit has something, it has maps in it, right? So I have a map of my area. I have of Los
Mm-hmm.
Angeles. I have a map of California, and I have a map of the US, Mexico, and Canada. So because those are the closest.
Move.
Huh?
I said, because you're on the move. That's so simple, but it's brilliant.
Right.
And I think we forget those sorts of things, especially because we're so technologically, glued to our phones. We're always going to have GPS. We're always going to have some signal. No, it's a
What if
disaster.
you don't? Right. What if you don't? And going
Mm-hmm.
to that point, right? One of the things me and my husband did is that we have walkie talkies, right?
We do too.
So because you want, right? So a lot of times people have walkie talkies and they put them in their kit. Okay, so
Right.
if when the earthquake hits, my husband's at work and I'm at the grocery store, how do we get in contact with each other if both of the walkie talkies are in our emergency kit at home? Right. So we've removed items that we're going to need if we're not together to find each other. And we've actually put them in our cars, our respective cars, so that we all always have them on us, if we're in different places. And then,
Mm-hmm.
and then let's say that all fails, having a meetup location for your close family and friends. So yeah, those are some of the, I would say if you're starting out on your own and you're trying to find the basic, think of that and then add to that whatever the major potential disaster is in your area. So for me, it's earthquakes. For some people down in, say, Florida or where you have hurricanes, yeah, you have hurricanes, but one of your things is floods, right? So I would have a way to get out, like say the water's rising, you got to go up to the ceiling. You need some kind of hatchet or something, a hatchet to be able to get through that roof. You need an axe. You need something so you don't get trapped. You need something. If you have a second floor, you need a rope, not a rope. Why am I losing my train of thought? A ladder. There you go. Simple word. Lost it. A ladder to throw out the window so you can climb down. You need, honestly, if I was down in an area that had potential floods, because I am a prepper, I would have a boat. Like I would have
Mm-hmm.
not a big one, but one of the rafts, like something that just gets me floating until I can get to dry land. So yeah, so I would say, think of your basics and then add on whatever the potential issues could be in the area you live in.
I'm 100% with you. And like some of the, like the map thing, it's like brilliant. But I tend to like things that are easily accessible, that are multi-purpose, multi-functioning. So
Yes.
the first thing, uh, and I say this because some people were like, "Oh, well, it's too expensive. Where am I going to find these things?" Listen, ladies, we bleed every month. What do we use to catch that blood? That could be in your kit. You know
Yes,
what I mean?
absolutely.
Things like that, the start where you are, like super foundational things, I
Yes.
think it's also really important for people to think about because sometimes that financial leap to say, I'm going to invest X amount of dollars into this thing,
Yeah.
either it makes it uh, forgotten, put to the back burner, or you're just like, you know
For
what?
sure.
I've got to pay rent, so I'm not going that. And it defeats the whole purpose.
Yes.
I think part of it is you should, really, like you said, address your specific needs, but think outside of the box as to how you can address
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then not to forget about like your kids,
them.
like I have a baby, right? I have a whole box of formula in my emergency kit that I don't touch for any reason. It's in the emergency kit,
Mhm.
might be the last thing I use before, she transitions completely out of formula. But, like you said, with the tampons and a razor, some soap, some towel,
Mhm.
alcohol, peroxide, all of those kind of things. And then, like, if it's too expensive, one of the things I say is just start small. You know, just the reason why a lot of people don't get started, like you said, there could be a financial reason, but there's also this isn't happening tomorrow, right?
Right.
So with that same mentality, this isn't happening tomorrow. Take $20 a month and say, well, this time, what's my most important thing? I want some water. Okay, I'm gonna get some spare water. Okay, well, this month I'm gonna get a high pressure bandage, to add
Mhm.
just in case I need to wrap, or a splint, in case
Mhm.
somebody's arm gets hurt. And then just slowly start, you know, because I know there are some people that it is going to be financially difficult, but then there's a lot of people who think who don't necessarily have a lot of money, but we have money.
Mhm.
We're
Mhm.
buying Starbucks, or we're buying, wine, or we're eating out, so to take just a portion. I'm not saying don't enjoy your life, because I am one of those people that believes in enjoying your life, and I'm never going to lecture people to say, this is more important than you, like, enjoy your life, but maybe just take a little bit of what you would normally spend on some of that and start slowly building up, at least something basic that gets you through a week. Even though, like I said, I really think people need to be prepared for about 3 weeks.
Mhm. Yeah, because we don't have I can't even say that. We don't have major disasters in my area, but we had, Hurricane Sandy a couple years ago that shut
Hmm.
everything down. We do get flooding or even a bad snowstorm and people are stuck in the house for a couple days. You
Right.
know, that's all practice.
Yep. What
So,
happens though if you get that snowstorm where it's like what happened down in Texas? They didn't get
mhm,
freezes, and the next thing you know, you just you never know with climate change happening right now. We just don't know how big things are going to start to get,
right.
and just from my experience working, as a FEMA contractor, these hurricanes are getting more powerful, and they're happening more frequently, and there are multiple ones that are happening, and you just really don't know. And I think that is what makes prepping such a hard business to be in, is that people don't know. I get the majority of, like, I get so much business right after an earthquake in California. Like, an earthquake hits, boom. Oh my God, everybody's scared. My website's going crazy. But once that dies down, people forget again, and you get into your everyday life. But I would
Mhm,
just say that if you're not going to do any of it, like, let's say you're not about to get water and gas, turn off tools, you're not about that life either, right? Get insurance. If
okay.
you're not going to get any of it, get some insurance on, renter's insurance. My favorite, I have USAA, but everybody doesn't qualify for it because
Mhm,
somebody has to be military in your family. But renter's insurance is $15-$20 a month, and basically, um, something happens, and 3-4 days later, you'll have at least a check to be able to go get a hotel room. You'll have something to be able to replace your stuff, you know. Um, well, I would say get renter's insurance and at least some kind of first aid kit because you want to be able to, make pass. But yeah, so that's what you know, my advice on getting life insurance. I'll save that for another day.
uh-oh. That sounds intriguing. Now, you're saying, okay, I guess have a smaller version or a similar version of what you would have for your home wherever you have your transportation.
You don't have to duplicate it. You just need to be
Mhm.
able to access it quickly enough to go. right?
Okay.
So I'll just give you an example, right? I do have a car emergency kit, but I just kind of split some of my stuff up. But I have one kit that I keep under because again, I'm in earthquake county, country or whatever you want to call it. But anyways, I keep a kit under my dining room table, right? Which basically has food, water, um, whistle. It has stuff for my baby, extra baby bottle, formula, um, and it has a hard hat, some gloves, and I have like a little mini axe underneath there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I also keep my map somewhere that I can grab them very quickly, right? So, and then I have another separate bag that just has like lights and batteries and, like all these kind of things. And I keep that in a separate area of my house. So if something was to happen, I'm going to grab what's underneath there. I'm going to grab my maps and I'm going to grab my light source and stuff. And I'm out. Like I can get out quickly without having to rummage through that. These are 3 different backpacks that I can kind of put on me and I can get out of here without having to rummage through stuff and try to find stuff. And oh my God, I can't carry this. It's too heavy. So yeah. So that's what we have here. And the reason why I keep it underneath my dining room table to the
Mm-hmm.
very back is because my dining room table is a place that I go that it's our place we would go if we have an earthquake.
Right.
That's what we're going to get underneath, right? So it's hard, it's wood, it's sturdy, So okay, I don't want in the moment to also trying to find out like, oh shoot, things are falling all around us. Like, where is everything? It's down there with us. It's already there.
And you just kind of touched on something that I feel is so important. Like, heaven forbid any of this stuff actually happens. Like, you never want anybody, you want to not have to use it, but have it there in case. But even saying that, the fact that you have it, for me, I think erases one of the biggest setbacks, which is the panic.
Yeah.
You panic, you lose your mind, and it doesn't matter what you know, it's
Right.
out the window, at least in that immediate, time frame.
Yeah.
So your reaction time is shot. You can't, so to be able to just say, okay, I can take the breath because I already know I'm taken care of. I already know that whatever happens, I'm good. I think that is a major, major key that we need to take more control over.
Yeah. And I mean, I definitely agree with you. And that kind of goes back to what I was talking about, even with like having a meeting place for your family, right? The worst
Mm-hmm.
thing in the disaster is the unknown, right? So now let's say you survive. Now you're worried about your mom, you're worried about your grandmother, you're worried about all these other different people. And
Mm-hmm.
let's say your house is safe, right? But you can't stay in your safe house because you need to try to get out and go help your mother, or your mom is elderly, she's aging, so
Mm-hmm.
you have all these different things. So taking away that by having the walkie talkies, every person in your family being able to get in touch with each other, knowing exactly where you're going. Like I said, we know we're going to the dining room table. We don't have to think about that. We've already identified that as the place in our household. We've already identified what to do. Like when an earthquake happens, like how do we get the baby? Who gets the baby? Who gets the, like, because you can't think in a disaster. It's the same thing. Like I said, you can't prep in a disaster. Once things have happened, it's really late to try to do anything. You're just going to be reacting now to whatever the fallout has already become. So
You almost have to create that muscle memory, you
it
know.
is muscle memory. That's exactly
Mhm.
what it is to know, just, you have to go on instinct at that point. But if you've never thought of it and it's not something that have done for a living like I have, then you don't have that muscle memory, and so yeah,
That's
disaster muscle memory. I like that.
good. It's just reminding me of growing up. You always think your parents are crazy until you get old enough and look back. It's like, yeah, they did know something.
Yeah.
Like, because growing up, me and my brother, like, they made sure we knew how to get out the house. Even because the way our house was, like, the front of the house was street level, but the back of the house was like 3 floors. We
Yeah.
knew how to get out the window and then shimmy down. Like we used to have to practice this. we,
Yes. I love
we
it.
had a designated meetings. Go to the big tree down to and stand like she drew it on a piece of paper. And I'm realizing, okay, we thought they were crazy, but they might have been onto something.
They
Just
were
in
on
case.
to something. They were really on to something. Having a family plan in case of an emergency is, I mean, and if you think about it, right? We do it at schools, at least they used to. I'm a little old now, You run drills at school, like, they do fire drills. What happens if there's a fire? You hear it, you file into this line. This is the place you meet on the playground. This is where you meet on the playground. Do they? I'm thinking they still do this,
So
we used to have earthquake drills, like, the office buildings I used to work at used to have fire drills and fire practice and tells you which stairwell to go through, where's your closest exit. You do it every time you get on a plane. That's what those safety precautions are for. They're telling you, look, find the exit closest to you and maybe behind you. They're telling you these things so that when the disaster hits, that you know what to do and you know where to go, and it saves lives. So if we do this in all these other environments, why do we fail to do this in our own home?
because we feel safe at home already and it
We
doesn't
feel
click.
safe. That is true. It's not clicking that if a disaster happens, that safety net goes away. So, yeah. Oh. So, yeah, I think that my hope for definitely at least the Black community, and especially for women, I have a group that I deal with just women, just because, like I said, I found it very difficult when I started prepping, because that not only do people not look like me a lot of times, because a lot of Black people aren't in these groups and stuff, but also not a lot of women.
Right.
It doesn't seem to be something that women are drawn to, and to be able to, like, just soften it a bit so that people can have a resource um, that they can identify with and hear, and that it's not so extreme, and to hear that prepping isn't an extreme thing. It's not something people do because they're conspiracy theorists, and they think the government is coming, to get us and take away. That's not what prepping has to be, and it's really not what prepping is. Prepping
Right.
is, disasters happen, they're real. They happen all across the US. They happen every single year, from hurricanes to floods, to earthquakes, to freezes, and snowmageddons, and all these different things. They happen. They happen every year. If they happen to you, how do you want to spend the next 3 to 4 weeks of your life while the government comes and helps life get back to normal? Like, what do you want those 4 weeks to look like?
That's
Do you want to be struggling? Huh?
I said that's a really good way to put it.
Yeah. Do you want to struggle? Do you want, like, if you're prepping, you don't want to eat this 2,800 calorie block of food. Like, why? You prepped already. Why are you prepping to struggle? Like, my prepping looks like for me is, we have board games. I have alcohol. I have board games. We have cards. We're sitting in here by candlelight playing cards and laughing until things can get back to normal. With our food and our grill and our I have a propane stove. We have what you call it. We have generators. So I have a generator so that my food doesn't go bad. And the freezer and stuff. So like, I don't want to. I don't want to barely make it through. I don't need the hardship story. I've had hardship stories in my life. I don't need this to be another one of them. You know.
I love
So
it. Yeah. No, I definitely love that. Um, I think alcohol might be a necessity for everybody's keep from in your kid because them nerves get a little bad. You might need to help you function. But I do
you
love the idea. Go ahead.
No, that's what people forget too. Put something in there that makes you enjoy life. That
Mm.
helps you enjoy life. TV isn't going to work. Remember, if your lights are out, Netflix is out too. So what helps you get through the day, in those situations.
I
But what were you
like it.
saying? I'm sorry.
I know. I was saying I really like putting a different viewpoint on it because everybody thinks you're prepping for like I Am Legend or like some whatever the day after tomorrow, some disaster, and the more you can make it feel like your normal life,
Yeah.
the better chance you get of, or better chance you have rather, of getting through this disaster, whatever it may look like. So I
Mhm.
really do like the idea of incorporating more normalcy, not just, okay, do I have food? Do I have water? Do I have things like that? I like that.
Yeah.
I like it. That's why I have these things, because sometimes you need to sit there and be like, I didn't think about it like that. But I'm going to do that. I like that.
That's because, and it's just, I've seen some of the most devastating, like, I mean, I've seen people boohoo crying in tears because they've poured their entire life into their home, and they had hurricane insurance, right?
Mhm.
And oh, this is important because I did talk about insurance. So they had hurricane insurance, and the hurricane hit, water flood into their house, 6 feet
Mhm.
into their homes. It destroyed all their wood and all this stuff, right? And then they called their insurance company and they're like, hey, have hurricane insurance. And they say, oh, yeah. Well, actually, the hurricane didn't damage your house. The hurricane caused the river to overflow, which flooded
Mhm.
into your house. And the flood is actually what damaged your house. And you don't have flood coverage. And so now you have people who thought they were prepared. They did everything right. They have a home, they have homeowner insurance, they got hurricane insurance, and their insurance is still not covering them like during the disaster because they didn't have flood insurance. So um, just as a caveat to the whole insurance thing, make sure that you have all the different coverages. And a lot of times, the what's not covered in your insurance is whatever the disaster is. It's more likely in your area. So in California, a lot of the insurances do not cover earthquakes. You have to get a separate policy for earthquake insurance, because more than likely, and so many people don't realize this, they have insurance, they have homeowners insurance or renters insurance, and they're actually not covered for the disaster that's actually most likely to happen. It's actually funny, not funny, but down in New Orleans,
Mhm.
that's why people were setting their homes on fire, back then when Hurricane Katrina happened,
Mhm.
and they were covered for fire, but they weren't covered for flood. So people would set their house who had got destroyed. They would set house on fire.
Ingenuity.
Yeah, I'm not saying to
Right,
do that because it's
right, right,
illegal.
right. Like, disclaimer, I'm not advising it. However, I
I'm just
heard
telling
that it
you.
worked for some people.
Yeah, but I would hope more people, we need another term for it. The group that I run is called glam vibe, like glamour survival. What does
Ooh,
glamour survival look like?
I like
So that's my Facebook group, and it's all women, all Black
that.
women actually. Um, and it's about like glamour survival, like where's your insulated wine glass?
Ooh,
Like where are your things that are going to make this a little bit more pleasurable and fun for you? Not, that's probably the wrong
no, that's the
wording,
right
pleasurable
word.
and fun.
That's the
I'm
right word.
like, we're in the middle of a disaster. I don't want to say, have fun, but if you're surviving for 3 weeks,
Ooh.
how do
No,
you put a little
fun
more
for you.
glamour into that?
Listen, fun and play are words that we should get more comfortable using in any situation. I'm so
Yeah,
serious. Like, if, especially with parents with young children, sometimes turning things into a game is the only way you can keep them from losing their shit. Like,
right. Absolutely.
so that idea of things being fun, I'm with it.
Yeah. And especially if you have kids, you need to have things that are going to entertain them. If they don't read, if they read, you need to have books they haven't read. It's part of your emergency kit. If they don't read, they like games, you need to figure out something that will help keep them, their minds occupied, and that they can do outside or inside if outside isn't safe, at the moment. So yeah. And then, just survive, thrive through the survival. And
Hmm.
I do hope more people who look like us start to take it a little bit more seriously, because our communities are disproportionately affected.
For a variety of reasons. Yeah.
Absolutely, during these disasters. I
Hmm.
see other communities, like, they literally got their entire, like, not only did they, like, disasters sometimes become like moments of, like, they get over on them, like, almost they,
Hmm.
like, now they, not only did they get did their house get fixed, but now they got to rebuild and remodel. Now
Right.
their house is better than it did before the disaster hit. And the same thing, like with, and I know people hate to talk about, death, or, something horrible happening, but the same thing when they had life insurance, and they were able to bury their loved ones without any stress, and then once they're done grieving, they also had an extra 300, 400, $500,000 to help their next generation, move into different, pay off the home and pay off the loan, and do all of these different things, just because they prepared. And the earlier you prepare for these things, the less they cost.
That's a good point.
So, I have a 9-month-year-old child, right? I have a little girl, um, and I have life insurance on her. I'm not preparing to lose my child. God forbid. It's not even something I can even, think
Hmm.
about. But also, because I got the kind of insurance that I got, it's a policy she can own and borrow off of when she gets to a certain age. Oh, yes. Some insurance policies you can actually borrow from if you've had them for long enough, amount of time. They become something that's actually an asset, and when you get them when they're young enough, like my daughter right now, 9 months, I'm paying $12 a month, you know? So I think that, again, like the same thing when it comes to disasters, like, we start to talk about these kind of things, and I feel like our community is like, oh, I don't want to talk about this.
Right.
It's a
Hmm.
bad omen. You're bringing bad.
Hmm.
You're gonna make it happen. No, that's not how things work. You're not making this happen. You're preparing for in case they do happen. And if you talk about them and you prepare for them in advance, it's a lot less expensive. And like you said, less stress, and it becomes a muscle memory, and you don't have to worry about. The fear goes away.
That's what I was getting ready to say. I feel like we need to reframe it because we do think of it in fear scope. Like we're doing this because we're afraid. We're doing this. No, we're doing this because we're aware.
Absolutely.
We're aware of the possibilities. We're aware of ourselves. Even taking the time to read the fine print on your homeowner's policy or, whatever you might have going on. A lot of us just sign our names and pay the bill and never look at it. So
Absolutely.
being aware of what exactly we might have more already lined up than we even know. But you don't want to be at the end of the rope trying to figure it out
Right.
under the pressure and under everything else.
And a
So,
lot of insurance companies, unfortunately, their goal is to not pay you, especially in a
mhm,
disaster. And the exception to those is like, say, a USAA, and that's because they take care of military families, and so
mhm.
they don't haggle you. They're not trying to, they're not trying to get to make their shareholders rich. They're trying to protect you. This is their whole goal, right? But other insurance companies, a lot of times, like, that's not their goal. Their goal is to stay in business, to turn a
Mhm.
profit, and so you're threatening that when you're in an area that had a major disaster. They don't want to have to pay out every single claim down there. That's not good business for them. So you need to know what, and fight. Like, just Never accept the first no. Never accept. I always tell an example of like I had a car back in the day and I got in a car accident, and it was a Mercedes. And so my insurance company, they're like, oh, you know, they came out, did the inspection, told me it was $1,500 worth of damage. And I'm all like, hold up. I got in another car accident like 4 years ago, and it was a Honda Accord, and that was $2,500 worth of damage. And you're telling me that this Mercedes cost less than that? I was like, I don't feel comfortable with these numbers, right? And they were like, that's what we're offering you. So I'm going to I'm going to the Mercedes dealership, right? So I went to the Mercedes dealership, and I got my estimate from them. Right. And then I came back to my insurance company. I'm like, absolutely, I'm not accepting this. Do you need me to get an attorney? Because I will, so I had to like fight for it. And it turns out they ended up having to pay off my car completely because they had to total it out. Because what they were trying to do is put some like little fillers in the door, something that was going to make my car less safe and diminish the value.
Right.
And I'm saying that to say that if you do find yourself in these situations, and you have an insurance company that's playing with you and that's not really helping you or that's offering you less than what you think that you're supposed to have, you have the right to push back. And I need people to get more comfortable with doing so. And especially women. That's not you being, can we curse in your show?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
That's not you being a bitch. And if it is, then call me Miss Bitch, because that's what I'm going to be today. Today I'm going to stand up for myself and tell you that, no, I'm not accepting the first thing you're giving me. I'm not accepting this offer. This isn't the value of that. And showing that and always, and feeling free to push back on that. So that's what and you have to do that, especially in a disaster. You got to fight. So.
And I feel like a lot of us, we find it so much easier to go with the flow, and it's just like, I don't want to deal with it, And that's actually part of the reason that I started the People's Pride Project in the first place, because I feel like people should be living, I say this all the time, an authentic, autonomous life. Like, you are in control of your life.
Absolutely.
You have the right to say what happens in your life and what doesn't. Just as far as even, it goes hand in hand with being prepared. You have to be in control of your situation. Even when your situation is out of control, be in control within yourself. What little things you can do to hold it together or make it make sense. Or like you're saying, the idea of living in this prepper world really does get very extreme.
Yeah.
And I even tell people, like, we start as easy as growing your own food, right? I'm not saying you have to go own a farm in the woods. I'm not saying you have to live off grid, but maybe you want to have a couple herbs
right
on the windowsill that can be medicine, and then you don't got to pay for them.
Right.
Just simple things like that. And
like an aloe vera plant.
Right.
Yeah.
Have some rosemary, some basil, and some oregano, and some olive oil. You can cure almost anything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, find out the little tricks. Black pepper stops bleeding. Like, these little simple things, just to take the panic out, to make you, I got this. I know how to go in my cabinet and I can make it work. That self-empowerment can change the game just that fast.
Absolutely.
When you don't feel that you're at the mercy of other people, and it changes the way you live your life. And that's what I personally want to give people, It's like, you got this, we've got this. So this is how we're going to make it happen. Stop feeling like you have to lower yourself. Stop feeling like you have to just take whatever the handout or the offer is, because you're very, very capable as an individual, and we're even more capable as a community.
Right.
So let's do the tweaks. Let's learn the little things. Our grandparents were doing it, and they had far less than we do. So I don't understand what the problem is.
And you actually bring up a really good point in terms of like the community aspect of it. Like, especially if you know your neighbors, a lot of times people don't
Mhm.
know their neighbors. But like, let's say it's not even just about your neighbors, right? A lot of times where I see people in these prepper communities, they're prepping for just themselves, right? I'm prepping for myself. Y'all better get it together. Okay, so for me, that's not realistic, right? Let's say I'm the only person prepping in my family. Am I turning my brother away? I'm not. Am
Mhm.
I turning my mom away? I'm not. Like, I don't care. Like, I'm just not that person. If we're in a disaster, we're all going to pile up in a house and we're going to try to all survive this together. So I might as well try to have some extra stuff, right?
Yeah.
If I'm the one who's doing it, if I'm the one who understands it, if I'm the one who could afford it, or, if that's who I am in the family, which for a
Mhm.
lot of people, that's who they are. There's always someone in
Mhm.
the family who just happens to be more prepared or more ready. If
Mhm.
that's who you are, you're gonna have to help somebody. So go ahead and be prepared. And also, I hope this isn't go against anything you believe in, though. But I also believe that if you're not prepared to defend yourself, you're preparing for someone else, right? So you need to have something to defend your household, right?
Oh, girl.
So for some people are anti-guns. I have a weapon. If it's not
Mine-
a gun for you, it better be, huh?
I said I have several. You must have
For
missed
some
the
people,
house.
yeah, like I have my guns because if you're not prepared to defend your home, you're
Mhm.
prepping for someone else.
Mhm.
Because what happens during this disaster is crimes of survival.
Scavenger mode. Yeah.
Right? And crimes of survival are the most dangerous crimes to me, right? Because
Mhm.
now you're not dealing with someone who normally does this. Like, oh, I'm coming, I just want your watch or whatever. Like, no, you're dealing with someone who has a starving child at home who needs to feed their baby, they need to feed their wife, they need to feed their family, and they're doing something that's out of character for them, but it's in desperation mode. And
Right.
that's when people get hurt and killed. And so you have to have something to defend yourself. I am very much so pro guns, and pro gun ownership as a Black person, especially.
Yep.
And I wish more Black people would become more pro guns and have their weapons. We have ours here, just in case. And then but if that's not something you're ready to do, like, can you have a bat or a stun gun or some bear spray, like, you need to have something,
If
even though
you have to have hornet spray and a lighter, because that's a blowtorch, like do something, make something happen.
right. So,
So,
and I think that that's another aspect of prepping, excuse me, that people forget about. Like, do I have a gun? Do I know how to use it? Do I have ammo? Do I have enough ammo?
mhm.
Because you can't run out and go get more, a lot of times in a major disaster. Cash. Do I have some cash? Because remember, if the lights are out and there's no power, there's no credit card machine, there's no ATM a lot of times. Like, these things also many times go down when all the services go down. So can I protect myself? And do I have some funds to be able to buy some small things or barter with if I need to?
Barter, definitely barter. And I think that's something that's also neglected too. Like, as people prepare themselves and get their stockpile and their stash and whatever else you choose to call it, it really is okay. How can I still interact with the outside world? Okay, say somebody does try to come to the house, and I may not want to shoot first. I want to listen what you have to say.
Right,
Maybe just me giving you something might quell the situation. Now, if
right,
you keep pressing it, you're going to have a whole other issue to deal with.
right,
However, it can be the small considerations of what can we possibly barter or what could be valuable in this sort of situation.
right. And it's actually like, hopefully you do know people in your neighborhood and you guys can kind of, help each other, because sometimes somebody over prepped in one area and under prepped in another, and the
Mhm.
same something that you might have done. Like I probably am definitely over prepped in the food area, right? Because I like to eat, so
Mhm.
I want to eat. That's the one thing I don't want to be. I don't want to be cold and hungry, right? If I've already survived and I'm not injured, I don't want to be cold and hungry. So I need food and I need to be warm. So I've probably over prepped in some of those different areas. So like I could spare some, depending on how long the situation is going to last. I can definitely spare a little bit. So maybe somebody else is over prepped in another area and they can spare some, and that's when the bartering starts to happen. But yeah, definitely having something that you're willing to barter with. And yeah, like you said, if you don't want your first option, anybody step on your porch, you're going crazy. Like, yeah, you need to be able to have something you can, and also not keeping your stuff all piled in the same place. Right. So let's say somebody does come, and they're going to take this from you. Like, they don't need to know you have some more in the bag.
Right.
They can think this is it. Here you go. Oh my God, don't, please, no.
Throw on some tears real quick. Please don't take all. Like, fuck out of here, yo.
Meanwhile, that's just small stash.
Right. But that's funny because that's the same thing we do in the garden. I call them sacrificial vegetables. Like sometimes you have garments that come.
Yeah.
Yes, these are for you. Stay away from mine. So
Right.
it's universal. I think all species know how to fake it when necessary.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely, definitely. But is there such thing as too prepared or too much prep?
Um, I wouldn't say there's such thing as too much prep. I just think that there are people who are extreme in general, and I think that that might be their personality type.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the whole like, if quarantine has taught me anything, is that I don't want to live alone. Right. Like, I'm just not built for it. I'm not fighting zombies. Just, take me now. I don't want to live that life for the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to live in isolation. I don't want people not to be able to talk. I don't want to be off the grid somewhere. Right. So do I think that's maybe too prepared? Yeah. But I mean, if they can do that, if they have that personality, then it's just too prepared for me. I just don't, that's not my lifestyle. I need people.
Right.
Like, I'm not trying. I've been in the house now well, I've started going out now, but for the year, and
Mm-hmm.
too much for me. So, but no, I don't think you can be too prepared. I think you can just be incorrectly prepared. You don't have the right stuff, or over prepared in a way, like, so that like I'm overly prepared for home, but none of the stuff I prepare for home I can take on the go, and I can't stay home. Like you have to be able to think through, like, how heavy is this? Can I take it with me? And what happens if I'm in a situation where where my home is no longer safe? And by the way, if your home is safe, it's always best to stay home. Like, if you can stay home and bunker down and that's a safe option for you, that's always the best option. You only leave your house if it's dangerous. And that danger can be for a lot of different reasons. It could be,
Right.
dangerous because your home is caved, or it could be dangerous because your area is unstable,
Mm-hmm.
or anything of that nature. But definitely don't leave. Just, I'm gonna hit the road and make it down to Texas. No, you're not. You're gonna be in traffic. Run out of gas. Gas is another one, but you know what? I need to do some more research. Like, I don't know how to safely store gas.
Mm-hmm.
And I know storing gas can actually invalidate your insurances sometimes. So
Oh, okay.
storing something flammable, because it means that more damage, or there's a greater likelihood of damage happening, if a disaster strikes. So, but having fuel is actually pretty important too.
Yeah.
So what I have instead at my house right now is I have the pump for the gas for the car, where you can take gas out of a
Like a
some kind
siphon?
of, yes,
Okay.
but the one where you don't have to use your mouth.
Yeah. My friend was just telling me he used to do that in college when he didn't have money for gas. So I got the visual. I'm like, no, no, let's not do that.
No.
Um,
Well, my logic for me is that we have two cars, you know? So if there was a disaster that happened, we can always take the gas out of one car if we ever needed to, at
mhm.
least, you know? And then we're like, and my parents were old school, so they believe don't let your tank ever be below half and all that other stuff. So, you know,
Yeah.
I still do that. So I know I at least have a half a tank in either car at any given moment.
Hmm. Yes. Like I feel both enlightened and I'm trying to think like what else? I always this is why I love having these couch conversations because I always leave contemplating like what's next or how do I tweak that or how do I work it so that whatever the topic that we're discussing, how does that
Mhm.
reflect in my life better for the next time? So
Yeah.
I'm really enjoying this conversation and I like that it's a very much a real world conversation. It's not like some theoretical nonsense. You know, like some people really take it to you should live in a geodesic dome and you should have like
Yeah.
who's doing that? I'm
I'm
just
not doing it.
trying to feed my kids. I'm trying to make sure, we get through.
Yeah.
So how do we do that in real world stuff? So
And and honestly, I think if you have kids, this is not an option, right? Like if you have young kids that still live in your household, prepping is not an option. Prepping is a necessity. Prepping
mm,
is just as important as having diapers and Pampers or food in your house to feed your kid because kids are the most vulnerable in those situations. The things we could survive, a child can't always.
mm,
And so you really don't want to be desperate in the middle of a disaster, because you didn't prep and you have two young kids or,
right.
so I didn't actually buy my generator. I'm a prepper and I didn't buy my generator until I had a baby, so having my child made the generator like, hold up, I got breast milk, I frozen in the refrigerator, freezer, and food, and like, no, I need something that's going to really actually keep the lights on and actually keep my freezer running and all of that good stuff. And so I bought a generator, and you have to buy a generator that's big enough to actually power however large your home is, whatever you're powering. So
Mm,
the small ones don't always work, but it's better than nothing.
right.
But you definitely need to do some research. And they have like calculators out there,
Okay.
they'll ask you like, oh, do you have a freezer? Do you have a deep freezer? Do you have a, cell phone? And it'll tell you how much wattage you're going to need in order to power all of that for however many hours. And so, but that is what kicked me into finally saying, okay, you need a generator because you have a baby and like it's one thing with me and my husband struggling by ourselves, to adults we can crawl under some blankets and rough it
Right.
out, but what I'm gonna do with a 3-month old, that's just not realistic. So yeah.
Right.
And then also, like, just one of the other final things is just knowing what the dangers are in those situations too. One of the sad things that I heard about down in Texas is like the lady who went in her garage and turned her car on and she died of like carbon monoxide poisoning. And honestly, like there was a part of me thinking like, I thought that was common knowledge, but nothing is common knowledge.
Right.
You have to just remind people that there are things you can do that are dangerous, during those times. And I think that's a good example is, the lady who died of carbon monoxide poisoning. You cannot, use your car to warm yourself up. Like, even if you're outside, if it's snow, like you could
Mhm.
still, the same conditions can be depending on how high the snow is. And definitely not in a garage. You kill your whole family can actually be.
Mhm.
And then you have the 11-year-old boy who I think he froze to death or something of that nature because they weren't, they all went and slept in their own bedrooms.
Right.
Freeze instead of, you got to pile up together, act like you love each other, get some body heat going on. You got all get in the same bed, grandma at the head, somebody at the foot. You just make it happen at this point. You cannot separate. And in these situations, you have to actually work together as a family, as a unit, or as a community if you
Mhm.
want to survive.
And that is a perfect place to end because that is absolutely the truth. That's the point of this whole thing. That's the point of the project. That's the point of everything. You have to work together to survive. You have to work together as a community. Call it family, call it whatever you want. Like we're all in this together. And I
Yeah.
truly appreciate what you're doing. I truly appreciate the effort that you're putting in, the work that you're putting in to not just educate, but to, be a voice to help supply to it's needed. It's needed. It's necessary. It is appreciated.
Thank
Truly,
you so
truly.
much.
I'm going to make sure everybody gets your contact information. They can go check out your website. You're open to being emailed questions or
Yeah,
things like
absolutely.
that. Okay. So y'all get in touch with her. Evidently, she knows what she's talking about. I knew that's why she's here. However, now you do too. So thank you so much. I usually only hold people hostage for an hour. So it's good to go. I
Thank you
really
so much.
having you on. Guys, this has been another couch conversation with the People's Pride Project. We have just spoken to Miss Shaun Joy, and brilliant as always, plenty of things to think about. And we're not prepping out of fear, we're prepping out of awareness and just prepping for comfort to enjoy, to continue enjoying the lives that we've already created for ourselves.
Absolutely.
So thank you very much.
Thank
Enjoy
you.
the rest of your
Bye.
night.